I will tell you about stories and storytelling in cinema. And I will tell you something very shocking. And it's something that most people don't even realize is a bit of something about filmmaking. And it's what makes the studio executives crazy. The original studio executives were storytellers, and they were filmmakers, and they built their studios. And they all started to die off in the 1950s, and then the accountants and the attorneys and the lawyers came in. And they went to Harvard Business Law School and all those other places, and they all knew about business and law and all that. And the thing is, when you're making films, you have to decide what films to make. And a studio, you know, sometimes they make 8 films a year, sometimes they make 12 films a year, whatever they make. So the hardest decision these guys have is to decide what films to make. And it's terrifying to them because most films, scripts are just dreadful. They're just dreadful. They're just awful. They're not about anything. They don't make sense. They're not coherent. That's why people who are screenwriters and write good scripts have a very rare talent, and they're paid a lot of money, and they're worth it. They really are. They really, really are. When I started making the films that I've been making, occasionally I worked with actors who are quite talented actors and had done quite long careers. Or sometimes I work with... Cat's running in and out. He's just going crazy. He doesn't know what's going on. And so when sometimes I work with actors who are kind of new at the game, but have done some, you know, they've been in like a bunch of movies already. And I start working with them on set, and I realize that they don't seem to know, they don't seem to have ever been directed. By which I mean they seem to have been trained, and they know that they're supposed to come in and their goal is to, you know, do whatever they're going to do in the scene, and this is the plot, and this is their character, and this is the emotion and stuff. But they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't know what the film is about. And what the film is about is something that makes everybody crazy, because nobody really understands it, because it's a very elusive thing. And it's not the theme, it's not the plot, it's not the character, it's not the settings, it's not the locations, it's not the historical context, it's not the genre, it's nothing. But this is what the film is about. What the film is about is a thematic argument that makes a definitive statement about the world, and it has to be relevant to the contemporary audience that's watching it. Now that's a big mouthful. And what do I mean when I say that? It sounds like BS. But when you look at any great film, if you analyze it critically and you really know what you're doing, you can find out what it's about. There's an example that people use in the industry, and it's sort of a saying. And they say, oh, the film's about this, but it's really about something else, or this other thing. They say, the film's about this, but it's really about something else. Well, that's not enough. So in the film Field of Dreams, it's a film about baseball, but it's really a film about the relationship between a father and a son. But that's not enough. What about the relationship between the father and the son? In Field of Dreams, it's a film about baseball, but it's really a film about a relationship between a father and a son that was a very difficult relationship and very hard for the people because they had difficulty with emotion. But it was worth it because they loved each other, and that was worth the difficulty of the relationship because the love was worth it. I don't know if I said that exactly correctly or exactly perfectly, but that's a statement. The relationship was worth it because love is worth it. And that's why you cry at the end of the film every time, even though you know it's going to happen. It's because it affects you directly. It's about something that you care about. I'll tell you something I probably shouldn't, but I'll tell it to you. It's not a terrible thing. I saw Rock of Ages the other day. I really like Adam Shankman. I really think he's wonderful. He directed Hairspray, the movie. And he did, I think, 9. And he's really, really talented. And he did Rock of Ages. And the film starts, and it's the girl coming in from, the small town, and she's coming to Hollywood, and things don't go well for her, and she meets the guy who's the barback, who's really in the band, and Tom Cruise hasn't shown up yet, and etc. But after a long while into the film, and the guy meets the girl, and nothing much is going on, and suddenly it's the night where Tom Cruise is supposed to show up, and it turns out that the opening band can't make it. So the girl says, hey, what about the barback? What about his band? And they say, okay, let's put him up there, right? Alec Baldwin says, let's go. You can go up there and whatever. And that's when the film starts. Like, the whole wonderful opening and all that stuff is like, there's not much content about, like, emotional content about, like, the characters that you can relate to. But then it gets to this moment where it's, like, suddenly relevant, and there's, you know what the characters want, and you know what their goals are, and you know that they care for each other, and that, all of a sudden it all gels. It's like, they could have cut out the first reel and started right there where the guy says, gee, we don't have an opening act for Tom Cruise tonight, and the girl could look up and say, what about my boyfriend's band? He's the barback. He's, that's the start of the film. Anyway, it's the inciting incident. It's the thing that changes things. In a 120-page script, it's supposed to happen on page 8. Yeah, they're very clinical about how they do these things. Okay, so that's that.